Hello everyone, good evening. I am Ramanpreet Singh. I work as a product engineer 1 front end at Stack. At Stack, we are revolutionizing sales and telecalling industry using tech and AI. I majorly work around front end, mostly revolving around JavaScript and Next.js ecosystem and somewhat part in React Native as well. In my free time, I love to read books, attend meetups, and also explore some new technologies. This talk, as the title says, is about Next.js middleware. But before we move on to ahead to what is middleware, I would want to ask you folks quick 2 questions, like how many of you have worked with Next.js in your company or personal projects? Cool. And how many of you have used Next.js middleware as well? Cool. So moving ahead, what is a middleware? So as middleware's name suggests, it lies in the middle of between two pieces of software and helps in communication, management and modification of data data transfer happening between those two pieces of software. So if you have ever built a server with Express or like work with backend frameworks, those have you might be familiar with the concept of middleware because those usually this is present in many of these server-side rendering frameworks or backend frameworks. So it is a function which returns you and sends you back the response from the server. In Next.js point of view, middleware allows us to run code before a request is completed, which means on the basis of the incoming request, we can modify our response. We can do multiple things like we can rewrite the URLs, or at the same time, we can modify or alter the cookies, headers, etc. and send it ahead. Important point to note here that middleware runs on the server in the Next.js world, and by default, middleware will run for every request in your project. So if we want to understand it visually, the diagram on the left side shows a normal server-side rendered architecture where front-end server and client are communicating with each other. And when we come to Next.js world with middleware, so middleware sits in between the server and client and like helps in the communication, and that can intercept the requests and allows us to make changes over that. Then coming on to convention, like what are the conventions when we are coding our middleware? So the file name should be middleware only, and it can be written in TypeScript or JavaScript. It should be present at the root of the project if you are not following SRC directory structure. But if you are following SRC directory structure, then it should be at the root of the SRC directory only. Then enough of talk. Let's see the code for a simple middleware. So before jumping onto code, I would want to show you like what this project is about. Like this is a simple Next.js app where I have defined some pages like about, feed, home, and a frameworks page where I have defined index.ts6 and a dynamic route for name. And there I have also created a utility directory in which I have kept some middleware codes already coded so as to save some time during the presentation. So let's move on to our middleware file. So as I talked about in the conventions, is this visible at the back? Is this better now? Yep. So as I talked in the convention slide, so I have kept the file name as middleware with an extension .ts, and we have to simply create a function named middleware and export it. So we get a prop as request here, and so this function can also be async as well if we need to do some async stuff, or if we want to call APIs or something. So I have added simple console.log middleware ran. So let's see how it shows up. So this is the app I was talking about. So I'm reloading the home page, and on the console, nothing shows up on the client side. Does anyone have any idea why the console that I added does not show up here? Yeah. Cool. So you were attentively listening to my slides. So yeah, it runs on the server side only. But if now we go to server, like the terminal where we are running our project, so we see like multiple middleware ran requests have been logged here. So at first glance, you might see like it is running for all the means like it is re-rendering a lot. So but if we console the request URL, so I am getting the path name from request.nexturl.pathname that I will explain in further slides, and I'll clear my terminal and refresh the page once. You'll see like middleware is running for all of the requests as I told in the initial slide. Like for the home route that I requested, then webpack.js, main.js, chunks that are JavaScript chunks that are being loaded, development manifest files, and as well as some development files as well. So this is what a simple middleware looks like. Now, as I told you, middleware runs on each or every request, but there can like if we are using middleware to redirect or rewrite URLs or something like that. So redirections can happen from elsewhere of our code base as well. Like if we have defined some redirects in the next config.js file, or if we have defined in our components as well. So there is a precedence order that is being followed, like when the middleware will run. So first of all, if we have added any headers in the next config.js file, that will run. Then redirects from next config.js will run. Then at the third place, middleware redirects, rewrites, etc. that we are talking about in this presentation, that will run. And then before files rewrites from next config.js. This before files like 4th, 6th, and 8th of my pointers in the picture. So these are like there is a redirect property that we can mention in the next config.js, and uh, we can specify like what redirects that we need to do. And before files means before the files are scanned for any redirects or something. After files means after file systems have been scanned, and fallback comes at the last. So as the order I told, before files, then file system routes, then after files, then the dynamic routes. Like I created a framework / name dynamic route, and at the last it will check for fallbacks inside the rewrite property of next config.js. So if you want to read more about redirects, that I have added a link for Next.js docs in the slide as well. So as we saw, like middleware was running on almost all of the routes and paths that and the requests that were coming from server. So what if we want to run it only on the specific paths, or we want to filter some paths and run basically on that only? So we can use custom matcher config for that. So what is custom matcher config? We need to export a config, means an object from our middleware files, which contains a will contain a key named matcher, and this matcher will allow us to filter our middleware to run on specific paths. So like in the first code snippet, I have added like /about /path star. We can, if we want to specify multiple paths, then we can use the array syntax to pass in multiple routes. And just to note, like if I use /about /path, then it will match with the about /a, like one sub route after that, but not with about /a/c. But if I add a star symbol after path, then it will match /about/a/c as well. We can use modifiers, like I have used the star, which represents, like, we can add 0 or more of ahead routes. And if we use question mark, then it is for 0 or 1. And if I use plus, then it is for 1 or more. Mature config also supports regex usage, and we can utilize like negative look aheads, character matching, etc. in that as well. So in the code snippet that I've added here, like this is matching all the request paths that are not from API routes. Like Next.js also support API routes, and filtering out the static files, image optimization files, and the favicon icon as well. Then moving on to conditional statements. So this is another way that by which we can run our modification logic only on specific routes by adding if conditions. But here is a catch: like middleware will still run on all the routes, rather uh, only the logic that is inside the if blocks will run as per the condition. Not like mature config, where middleware would not run for all of those parts that we have either not mentioned or we have filtered out. But here middleware will run for each and every route, just that, like, it will run our logic that we have added in the if blocks. So if we see the code for the conditional statements, so I have imported next response and next request, which I'll cover in the slides ahead. And from the next server, I have exported the function middleware that gets request as a prop. Then I have added a if statement, request.next URL.path name starts with home. So if it my path name will be home, then I'll do the redirect to a new URL. So next response dot redirect is a like static method that I get on the next response object, and in that I am constructing a new URL by passing a new field named feed, and request URL is being passed to for the new URL method to get the base URL out of it. And similarly, I have added another conditional statement. So this is another way, like if you want to run conditionally or logic. Then coming on to next request and next response. So these are just the extended version of what web API provide, like web API's request and response objects provide us with some added utility methods and helping functions by Next.js. So for how they look like, let's check in code once. So yeah. So I have pre-written some code for different use cases. So I'm using that. Yes. So the request object that I was referring to, that I am getting inside as a prop. So if we console.log that request, and I'm just so the request object that we get from the or we can say the next request object, it contains a huge amount of information like cookies that I have set, href, origin, protocol, and the next URL I was mentioning, that too as well, and various other headers and all. Now if I coming back to response, so I'm adding a logic similar to like next request.next URL.path name triple equal to about, and I'm redirecting, if the URL is about, I am redirecting that to feed, and then I'm consoling that response and returning that, and if the URL does not match, I'm doing return next response.next. So if I clear the terminal and move to about page, it if you can see, like I clicked on about and it got redirected to feed, and here is the next response object that we can use. like headers, okay, redirected, status was 307 because I redirected it to feed. And if I didn't, if I was not accessing the about route, then it would have gone into return next response dot next. So what does next do here? It is another method that next response provides us if we don't want to like do any changes on the URL or something, and we just want to let it continue ahead. Then we can call the next method over the next response. Moving ahead, what can be done using middleware? So we can redirect an incoming request to a different URL. We can rewrite a request URL. We can modify request and response cookies that we are getting. Uh, we can set request and response headers, and even we can return a JSON response directly from the middleware. So redirection, as we already have seen, like how redirection worked. Now, what is the difference between redirection and rewriting? So redirection means we navigate to a new URL, but rewriting means the URL will remain the same, but the contents of that page will be from a different URL. Or in other words, we can say that rewrite is proxying that another URL for through our original URL. Then coming on to cookies, we can use cookies property on next request or next response to access and modify cookies. On a request, they are stored in the cookie header, and on a response, they are stored in a set cookie header. And for incoming requests, we have get all, set, delete, has clear, and for outgoing responses, we have a get all, set, and delete methods. For headers, similarly, we can set headers using the middleware as well. So I'll quickly show you like how this is happening. So if I go to about route, then what I'm doing is I'm redirecting that to a feed route, and I am setting a cookie named meetup, and its value would be React.js Bangalore with path, and I'm returning that response. So let's first try cookies and redirect. It would be on about page. So if I go to about page, yeah, it is running a chain of middleware. So let me, yeah. So when I press the about, I need to show you the cookies as well. So again, doing that, and we can see like when I access the about route, I got redirected to home. That is visible here, and in the about route, cookie was added, like set cookie. Is this visible now? This cookie was added, like set cookie meetup React.js Bangalore and path slash. Similarly, if I would access the feed route, the response would rewrite to frameworks. So the difference between redirect and rewrite will be shown here, and also response headers would be set x hello world from Bharat. So I'm gonna access the feed. So what it does, it maintained the URL for feed, but shown me the content from the frameworks. So if I go to about and now frameworks, this was the frameworks UI, and it when I am moving to feed, it is conserving that URL and showing me another UI. And if I go here and check the response headers, I am getting X hello world from Bharat in the response headers. So these are being set as well. Moving ahead, we can also return a JSON response directly from our Next.js middleware. So as you might be aware, like there is a API route already present which comes when I scaffolded this project. So it is doing nothing like response.status 200 and JSON, it is returning John Doe. So if it is a GET request, so I can access it via browser only, API/hello. So it is returning a JSON response named John Doe. And if I Yep. So in the middleware, please pay attention on the matcher config that I have added a API/route. So it will only run on the API only. And I have added a JSON.stringify response. So success true, message yo yo yo. So once I request that, this is showing me success true, message yo yo yo. Now, a question for the audience, like, what do you think? Can we return a JSON response for the page route as well? Okay, let's see it once. So what I did here, like I changed the matcher config from API route to about. So it will now run on only the about route and it will return a JSON stringify. So if I go to my project and try accessing the about route here, so I'm getting the success true message yo yo yo, like feed, and for about it is showing me. Yep. Moving ahead, Next.js also added advanced middleware flags in v13.1 version of their release to handle some advanced use cases. So right now there are two advanced middleware flags like skipping. Is it stuck? Yeah. Should I try resharing my screen? Cool. So two advanced middleware flags right now we have. Like one is the skip trailing/redirect. It allows disabling Next.js default redirects for adding or removing trailing slashes. And another one is skip middleware URL normalize. So by default, whenever redirects or happen, Next.js normalizes URL for us, but it disables that feature. You can read more about it on the Next.js docs as well. Another question, like I demoed some of the use cases that we can achieve using the middleware, like we can reset cookies, redirect, rewrite URL, respond with JSON responses. Can you think of any use cases for real world application of middleware, or how you folks are using middleware in your projects or anything? One. Okay. Yep. And cool. So some of the use cases I've also listed, like authentication, token verification, redirection to login page, handling for protected route, that sometimes we do on client side, but if we want to do token verification in the middleware, and we can directly redirect and create the logic for protected route from there only. And let's suppose there is some bug in our page which is breaking the application, and we can quickly deploy a fix to redirect or rewrite that URL, deleting HTTP only cookies that we can't access on the client, adding headers, redirect user based on the geolocation to server location specific content, like means reading their location and redirecting to .in .au websites, and setting internationalization language basis the geolocation of the user. We can also enforce or IP allow. We can enforce a block or IP allow list using middleware. And last that I had, like A/B testing this different features for different users, that we can also do using middleware. So the references I've used are basically Next.js docs only. Yeah, this was it from my side. Thanks Reactify and React.js Bangalore for giving me the opportunity, and thanks for being a awesome and patient audience and showing up on a Saturday afternoon and evening. Happy to take any questions or doubts if anyone has regarding middleware.
Any questions, anyone?